Hello, my name is Evan Braley, and today I'm going to be taking you through a project that I did with 3 other students in my object-oriented design and development class that I took fall of my junior year. So that would be fall of 2024. So a couple months ago. And yeah, I'm just going to take you through this project, kind of show what went into it and what the end result looked like. So this class was definitely focused more so on designing huge projects rather than maybe the implementation details. Basically, how this class was structured was, we'd have lecture where we learned about various things like, just typical, like the design patterns that are common in industry. We learned about, class diagrams, sequence diagrams, domain models, testing with things like JUnit and mocks and stuff like that. And over the course of the semester, on our own time, we were tasked with creating this tank video game that I'll get to in a second through Android Studio. So this is an Android app that me and 3 other students created together over the course of a semester. And we weren't really guided on how we should approach creating it. We were just kind of given a list of requirements in terms of what the functionality has to be. And then using our knowledge from class that we learned about like design and patterns and stuff, we were tasked to create this video game. So the way my team decided to break it up was we had 2 people be on the client side and then 2 people focused on the server side. I, along with another one of my team members, was more on the client side, so that's kind of where my familiarity rests. So I'll kind of take you through the stuff that like I was doing from that perspective, and then I'll show you the finished result. So this is definitely probably the project that I've done that has the most amount of code. Like this was over months of development where we were doing like tons of hours every single week. And I think it shows, like there's all these different files, and this is just the client side, and then there's the server side. We use tons of different patterns like the controller pattern, singleton, state pattern, the observer pattern, factory pattern, facade pattern, all these things, and I'll get into some of them. But so this class, I'll just take you through some of the classes to give you an idea. This class right here is the REST client. So this basically is just a bunch of REST calls that we can make to the server. This is kind of the linking point. I could scroll up, but it has like my IP address, so I don't really want to show it right now on YouTube. But this is kind of the thing that allows me to run the server locally and then run my client locally, which I'll show in a little bit, and connect them. So that's kind of like the REST stuff. There's like an error handler. And the basic structure of how this, game works is we have the server that is storing and creating and changing these raw values. It's basically like a grid, a 16 by 16 grid of numbers, right? That represents the game board. And the job of the client is to kind of poll the server every time an event occurs to get all the new raw server values and then convert it into images and display it and show it and, do all the front-facing UI stuff that you would expect. So this grid poller task is a singleton as well as many other things. I don't really want to get into all the singletons that we use because tons and tons on both client and server. But the idea is basically every time there's an event that occurs, which the server and client will post all these different events. We have damage, death, delete, all these different things. These will be posted via the observer pattern through Java's event bus. And then we have a game event processor that recognizes that and then sends calls to various other classes. And anytime these events are triggered, we have the poller being tasked to go to the server, grab the values, and then bring them back to the client, right? And then on the client side, we also have this facade pattern in the sense of the SimGrid view, which is basically just a class that deals with, having the game board with all the different values and stuff associated with it. And then using like various factory patterns to then create, different types of things that could be on the game board. We have a terrain layer, an improvement layer, and a surface level layer of all these different objects that can be on the game board at a given time. So that's kind of the rough, very explain like I'm 5 kind of way of how the client side is working most of the time. But we also, there's more complications to it too. Like Android Studio, it always launches through this thing called the client activity. And to do that, we have to use a controller pattern. So we have this client controller that kind of controls some of the calls that is used on the client activity. And yeah, I guess that's the main gist of the kind of work that me and my partner were dealing with. We also had to employ the state pattern because once you are moving around on the game board, some of the options of controls that you can use become enabled or disabled given on your location on the board. Like, let's say you are a tank and there's a wall in front of you. You can't hit forward because you can't move forward, so we had to gray that button out. And so we had to use the state pattern for that to understand what state the game was currently in and then make decisions based on that and then have different code and functionality based around that. So that's kind of what this entity state folder is. We also had to store account info because part of this is you can make an account with the server and then you have money that's coming in that's stored when you log in and log out. So that was another thing that we had to use singletons and other patterns for. Trying to see. We also have this replay functionality that I employed where we basically use the command pattern to, store a huge list of all the different events that have occurred over the time of the gameplay. And then we basically put that in a list, or a queue rather. And then when you go to the replay activity, so you launch the replay screen, you can hit play and it'll go through all the different events that have been stored and just simulate them in front of you. And you can play that at different speeds too. You can play that at 1 time speed, 2 times speed, 3 times speed, 4 times speed. You can pause it, you can reset it, you can do all these different things. So that was another way we kind of used some design patterns. So yeah, I think the big things that I learned from this project were definitely, a lot about what goes into creating a big project from a design standpoint, right? Like, me and my team would have these meetings every, 3 times a week, right? Where we would just talk about how we want to approach the code before we even logged onto the computer, right? We would be making, class diagrams, sequence diagrams, just all these different things to kind of plan out what patterns we wanted to use. And that was something that I had never really done before while coding, most of my coding in the past and in other classes had really been focused on just kind of all right, here's a task, let me just kind of wing it, let's get in there and just start coding. But this really helped me slow down and realize there's a lot more that goes into this stuff than just, hacking away at the keyboard. And I think that was really beneficial for my learning. Additionally, just seeing, industry patterns that are used every single day in actual software that gets, deployed to millions of people, that was kind of cool and very interesting to me. And yeah, I think those are kind of the big takeaways I took from this. Also, just working on a team for the whole semester was kind of cool because you get a lot better at working with people and, leaning on each other's strengths, which I think was hugely beneficial to developing me as someone who has a future in tech. Yeah, and I think, being on the client side, I also just learned a lot about UI, how to make a good, simple but efficient and understandable UI, that is enjoyable to use, but also functional. And I think that was really important as well. Also working with two other people that are working on an entirely different thing than I am, like me and my partner on the client side, like we had a lot of similar things that we were working towards. But, the other two people on the server, like we had to communicate with them in a way to move the project forward and, rely on each other without even delving at all into the other person's code. I don't think the people on the server ever really looked at the client code, and I don't really ever think I ever really looked at the server code. Sure, we talked about it and discussed things at length, but it was very much a separation of concerns that we had to work through. And I think that was really cool for me as someone who's never really done that kind of work before, and definitely strengthened my ability to work with others, but also understand how to focus on a niche aspect of something in the greater scheme of a bigger project, which I think was hugely beneficial. So with that big general introduction to everything, let's kind of fire up the game so I can kind of show you what this ended up looking like, right? Okay, so this is the rough gist of the game, right? So you spawn in and you have this tank, and that's kind of you. You get to move around. You can see we've added different sounds. You can shoot. There are different power-ups. And we have all the different stats on the side of the board. So we can see our health. We can see how fast we move. We can see our fire rate. And then the same with our builder and ship, right? So we can go over here and we can hit this power up. And you can see that it changed our movement rate and changed our fire rate, right? So let's say if I click fire a bunch of times, there's a maximum rate that we're allowed to actually fire. But if we hit the power up, that'll change, and then we'll be able to fire at different rates. So let me get over here. We can also see how different terrains can affect the movement rate of different vehicles, which I can show in a second. Okay, so we can see that this just increased the fire rate a decent amount. Okay, and we can also see that the bullets wrapped around and lowered the health of my tank, right? So that's kind of some of the gist. The cool part about this game too is if I had another person, unfortunately I don't for this demo, but they could run their client and put my IP address in as their server. So on that Rust client file I was showing you, if they put my IP address in their little file there, they can join the server and they'll appear as a red tank, a red builder, a red ship, and then we can kill each other and fight, and that's kind of where some of the fun of the game comes in. I really wish I had another player to show, but unfortunately I don't. But you can see that we're able to move a ton faster on this grass. Oh, I don't want to get hit. Versus like this hilly region, for example. Okay. Let's go over here. We also can't walk on the water. And to do that, we would need to build something. So let's show like some of the different vehicles we have in this game as well. So we have the builder. You can see how that flashed when we went in. I'm going to move this bullet so it doesn't kind of keep being how it is. Okay. We also have all these different power-ups of this, and this that spawn randomly at different times on the board. Okay, so that hurt me a little bit, but I'm still alive. So I can go down here. And I can click here to decide something to build. So if I want to build decking, I can build it. Oh, just kidding. Sorry. I have to have coins to build anything. So to do that, I'd have to log in, right? So let's leave this game and log in. Okay, so right now I don't really have an account, so I'll do test, or I'll do demo. Demo and demo, and I can register. Registration successful, okay. Hit log in. So now I have 1,000 credits. So now I have an account associated with my play here that can gain money and use that money for various things. Let's go up here. Okay, so now I have like 57 more credits. So let me show you that decking thing, right? So let's go to the builder. If I click the decking, I can build it. It's weird. Oh, sorry, I forgot. You have to have it. It builds out the back. That's why. So you hit decking. Now we should be able to hit build and build it on the water. Yes. Okay, so now we can actually walk on the water. You can keep building. And this allows for your tank to be able to kind of move across the water, which it previously wasn't able to do. And for a lot of this disabling and enabling the ability to move in places, it had to come down to the fact of like the state pattern, essentially, like I was saying earlier. Yeah, now I can move on the water. Now I can't move anymore. If I go to the ship is allowed to move just on the water, as you might expect. So yeah. But it's never allowed to move backwards. Okay. Another thing is you can ram different walls. So if I go here, I can ram it. Take a little bit of my health away, but I can destroy the wall. I can also shoot and kill walls that way. So basically just a very simple kind of game, but tons of code that went into it, especially with the account stuff, you know, all the different power-ups that were added, the different kinds of terrain, the different kinds of objects on the game board, having the game board update at different times, you know, having this being able to house multiple people at a different time and them interact and kill each other, having them being displayed on different people's screens as different colors, and there was a lot that kind of went into that. And I think we were only able to do it as a team because we are so thorough in our design and utilizing different patterns. Because the biggest thing I took away from this class was learning just how useful patterns can be in object-oriented design. They're largely amazing, and there's no wonder that they're used in industry all the time. Because they just simplify everything so much. They allow you to have, you know, high cohesion in your classes and low coupling between them, which is super important to keeping your code manageable and well-performing, for sure. Another quick little thing before I kind of wrap this up is, as a tank, you can also eject, and then you have a little soldier. So you have another new movable character that can kind of shoot around, and, you know, that can be on the battlefield, right? So as you can probably tell, this game is a lot more fun when you have another player with you, but you can kind of get an idea of like how this game works and what the purpose of it was. So now I'll kind of show you the replay feature, right? So you can leave the game and you can hit replay. So that brings you to this other menu, and you can hit play. And the reason these are showing up red is this was my first playthrough. So if I do 4 times speed, because it's not currently associated with my account right now, But 4 times speed, and you can see this is the exact flow that we had with our game here. So that was when I shot all those bullets earlier. And you can see it's literally mimicking exactly what our character did throughout this past however long, 5-10 minutes that we've been playing. And it's on a faster speed because I hit 4 times speed. Yeah, I don't want to really run through the whole thing. I'll just kind of show real quick that we can get it to be blue if it was our current player's journey here. So just do this and maybe fire a shot. If we left and replay, hit play. Oh, it might be because I'm logged in. Yes. So let's say, hold on. Here, I can just show this real quick. Stop the client real quick. We'll rerun the client. And we can shoot. You can see if we hit replay, it will show us moving forward and hitting shoot. So that's kind of a rough overview of kind of what this game was all about. I hope you kind of learned, you know, some of the process that me and my team members had to go through to kind of create this. And yeah, this is definitely one of the more fun projects that I've done over the course of my college career. Really informative, and I loved working with Android Studio. It's a little buggy, and there was some annoyances there, you know, as an application, but doing Android development was super cool, and it was really cool, you know, understanding that I could deploy this and someone could, like, play it on their phone or their iPad or something like that. And I don't know, it was really fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed learning about this project. And I will link the GitHub repo down below in the description. So if you want to check out my code for this at all, you can go right ahead. And yeah, thank you guys.